Welcome to the Alchemy of Success podcast with Dr. Michael Leslie, designed to give smart, ambitious 9-to-5ers the knowledge, insights, and tools they need to live their best life. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody, to the Alchemy of Success. I'm your host, Jason Wilson. Tonight, we're going to do things a little bit differently. But yes, I will be interviewing tonight my friend and mentor, Michael Leslie. And first, let's get a little bit of background about Michael. We'll be right back.
Dr. Michael Leslie, Ph.D., is an experienced speaker, facilitator, coach, and trainer, and served 35 years as a tenured professor of journalism and communications at the University of Florida. He has traveled extensively, teaching and researching intercultural communication, leadership, and personal transformation in 20 countries on 4 continents. He speaks fluent English, Spanish, French, and is proficient in Portuguese. He is a graduate of multiple landmark worldwide personal development and training programs, including the Curriculum for Living, the Team Management and Leadership Program, the Communication Course, the Leadership Course, and numerous specialized landmark seminars on money, living life by design, and happiness, among others. The results of his intellectual and professional endeavors have been published in academic and trade journals, and he has been a featured guest on numerous international radio and television programs. He lives currently in Cali, Colombia, where he hosts a podcast called The Alchemy of Success, based on his book, How to Get What You Really Want, available on Amazon. He is currently designing a 7-day in-person life transformation experience for next-level self-actualizers, debuting October 2025 in Santa Marta. To find out more about his services, subscribe to his Alchemy of Success podcast at www.youtube.com, or at Get What You Really Want, or contact him via his website at www.drmichaelleslie.com.
Welcome, Dr. Michael Leslie.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Jason. It's good to be here again with you.
Awesome. Michael, you have had a phenomenal life. Do you hear this and say, my God, I did all of that?
Well, actually, I'm very surprised every time I have to put together a summary of what's there that I hadn't really recognized. And it strikes me that that's what most of us do. We go through life not really knowing who we are. Maybe we're not even listening to ourselves. We're listening to what other people say about us. And so if we don't hear something sad about us, then we just sort of forget that that's part of us too. So yeah, I get surprised every time I do this.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity for me. We have a lot of similarities that I saw with your life and mine, beginning with your family in Jamaica. And your grandparents immigrated from Jamaica to Cuba. So tell us about that. Did you find that a hard transition to go from Jamaica to Cuba?
Well, the truth of it is that I was not in touch with the experience of my grandparents, really, until I actually went to Jamaica. So my grandparents had to leave, as all Islanders do, had to leave Jamaica for better opportunities. Right? They went to Cuba because the United Fruit Company had large plantations there. My grandfather spoke Spanish. He spoke English, so he was able to find work for an American company doing business in Cuba, right? And then when things weren't going so well for them, his children said, "Well, where's the next opportunity?" That's my father, Alberto Leslie, and his brothers, and they got on merchant ships. They become merchant seamen and went from Jamaica. There's their way out of Jamaica to the United States, which, of course, the next land of opportunity. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I should now that I look at it, things that was 1940s, 48, 50s, that deep Jim Crow United States, right? So a lot of things that they had hoped to accomplish, they weren't able to do. I mean, they had great ambitions. I remember my one of my uncles was he had learned to be a printer in Jamaica, the print trade, and he could never find work because of racism and discrimination. He was never able to find work in Philadelphia, so they all wound up staying on ships the rest of their lives. They had a stable income. That was the big thing. They didn't have to go from job to job, year to year, and they were also offshore. So, you didn't get the direct impact of racism on a ship that you would get, say, living in a city like Philadelphia, where, as you know, not too many years ago, the mayor bombed a black neighborhood, literally bombed them from above. And so I didn't, all of that part of being Jamaican, it didn't really, or having this Jamaican Cuban part of me, I actually tried very hard, Jason, I think, to just be like everybody else. I mean, I wanted to fit in. I guess all of us do when we're young, and I never really got to know myself as Jamaican, Cuban until my father said, "I've had enough of this," and he moved the whole family down to Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico, in 1961. And that was where I began to feel, okay, I got some of the Mexicanness in me. I mean, I still have that today. I went to high school there, junior high school there, started college in Mexico and all of that. So this Latino part of me was fed, right? But the Jamaican piece, I got in touch with that. I started hearing from one of my Jamaican aunts, or no, she was a cousin. Well, you need to, you have Jamaican roots, and you need to go, and you need to go see. And so, and I did go, and then I was introduced to, how you all of a sudden you feel that, oh, this actually fits. I mean, these are my kind of people, if you would.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't feel like an outsider there. I mean, even though it wasn't Jamaican, I can't speak patois, right? But what is it? It was oh, I know what it was. She showed me a deed, a deed of land that been land bequeathed to my grandfather, to his grandfather, a huge tract of land, several hectares of land, and the family name is on there. Leslie is on the thing. So, oh yeah, okay, I got it now. I really am a part of this place. I mean, my people are from this place. I went up to see the land, walked on the land, paid taxes on the land, so it can come to me, that sort of thing. So again, coming into the Jamaicanness of it all has been a gradual process.
I see. So tell us about that experience in Guadalajara, Mexico. I mean, was that culture shock for you? I know how I felt when I left the states and came to Colombia. So tell us about that.
Well, yeah. Well, let me give you a picture. So, we're we decided to go from Philadelphia down to my we didn't we came through the United States, Philadelphia, went up to Canada first because we had this Uncle Tom's Cabin and this whole thing about the freedom and from slavery and the escape and all of that. My father wanted us to know all this history, and I was only 10, 11 years old, right? Well, we got all that. Then we came down through the middle of the United States, and it was, I mean, again, you and I would have no concept, well, of it. But I mean, you couldn't get a hotel. You couldn't stay in public accommodations. We were sleeping in the parks or in the car. And
What?
so,
Wow.
yeah, it was my mother's making food in the park, man, for us to eat. But like, I didn't know what was happening. I thought it was weird that, we couldn't sleep anywhere on the road. But
Mm.
so we got to Mexico. So, and it was like my father was so relieved after we crossed the border, And one of the first towns that we stopped in, they had never seen. We parked the car, and we walked up, inside the road, walked up to see, I don't know, the town. I guess we're going to get maybe something to drink. Who knows? And all the people came out of this town and gathered around us, looking at us like we, extraterrestrials had landed. Right? They had never seen a black. This is '60s, right? Early '60s. They had never seen a black person in that town. Right? And so they, of course, the usual thing, they want to touch you and, see if it's real. And of course, I was protected from a lot of that part of that experience of, although I did feel like an extraterrestrial, I think, but because I couldn't, at that point, I couldn't speak Spanish. We are just from the U.S. We're green, if you would. And then when we got to Guadalajara, and that was where we actually were going to set up shop because my father knew someone there who helped us, get accommodated. That's where I started learning intensively Spanish. We stayed at home. We were homeschooled in Spanish for 6 months. I think no, it was probably a year, but until we could actually now go out and go to school and talk to people and all of that. And that part was very how when you asked the question about how was it, did I feel weird? I felt that I was an object of curiosity. Everywhere we went, people would look at me. I mean, they'd stop in literally in their tracks and look at us and stare at us, and we had to get used to being stared at, right? And yeah, now you're bringing that back. Yeah, that was not very comfortable that time, and that time also coincided with the racism in the US, and let's face it, racism in Latin America too, right? So it was just a weird thing. Thanks for asking that question.
Man, I asked that because I'm actually living that situation here in Colombia, in this small town where I'm at. There's only 3,000 people, Michael. And so,
Mm.
everybody knows me, everybody knows my wife and son. And so, yeah, every place I go, hey, Jason, I mean, they know me by name. But in the beginning, though, when nobody knew me, I mean, I got stares all over the place. It wasn't out of disrespect or anything like that. Like you said, it was curiosity.
Yeah, and I think I developed a kind of you I was gonna I think I'm looking to see what it was, but I became kind of defensive, I think, because I didn't want to be hurt. Here's what some of the things. Here's how it happened for me. And this is years before your experience, so with two different time frames, but some similarities. So, in my case, it was, I think, that because of the Mexican culture, which has a lot of racism inherent in it. I mean, they discriminate against the indigenous groups. They discriminate against the Africans because there are not too many Afro descendants in Mexico. So it's still a rarity, and most of them are living in some form of poverty. So here, as an American, I'm not living in poverty. I'm going to private schools, but the things you get on the street were things like, you know, oh, they have an expression which you'll maybe negrito sandia, right? So black watermelon eater, like that. And so I know I had to deal with this, like, you can't, it's not like they were attacking me. I mean, but they were having fun. They were having fun with me at my expense. And I think I learned to deflect the feeling of hurt that I experienced, but nevertheless, it hurt. That's something I am very sensitive to nowadays. In fact, you know what, brother? I made my whole career. This is great. I made my whole life, my career. As you know, I'm a PhD in communication, intercultural communication, research, and all that stuff. And all of my career was about racism, racism in the media, racism in intercultural communication.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I just saw that. So that experience generated my desire to understand the phenomenon, maybe find some ways in which we could deal with it. I certainly blame the media a lot for that because, American media, well, I don't need to tell you, well, with American media, all these racist things and about black people and people of color in general, and that gets transmitted. Other countries consume American media, and then they have their own media and their own traditions of They have an expression in Mexico, la rubia superior. They use that expression to sell beer. you know, yeah, there was a lot. There's a lot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was just about to ask you, okay, so, every child has a dream to do something, police officer, lawyer, doctor, something. Was it your dream to be a professor at a university?
Let's see. The dream was always to teach, right? Something about how people could get along better. That's where the intercultural communication part comes in, and I made my life about traveling and meeting people of different cultures and all of that. But whether well, there's a story here. So uh, I was on my way to getting a doctorate in communication when I finished all of my coursework and had written my proposal. So there was and I think I'd actually done some of the research. I did some research on Mexicans who had stood up to the United States. That seems to be timely now, and the role that media, their newspapers, played in that. And so it came time to write this up, and I just got blocked, stopped completely. I just stopped working. I mean, I opened a small newspaper. I had a lot of fun doing that. I think I had children, not, but I wasn't working on getting my doctorate, and I was very close to it. So I went to see this guy and a counselor, and he said, "Well, you do this thing called the Landmark Forum, which I've shared with you, and many people really had it changed my life." And during the process of doing the Landmark Forum, I discovered the reason I was stopped is because getting a doctorate meant to me at the time that I would be stuck being a teacher at a university, and I didn't like my teachers. I thought those professors were the most boring people I'd ever seen in my life. And I said, if that's gonna be my life, I don't never want to do this. But I never connected it that with stopping to do the work required to get the doctorate. So once I seen that that's something I had made up, like, oh, my life had to turn out like theirs, I was able to complete the doctorate. 6 months later, I had my doctorate in hand, and I learned during this process of doing the Landmark Forum, which is all about discovering who you are and what you might become in life. Um, it was you. The guy said, "Wait, Michael, you don't have to be you don't have to be them. You can use your doctorate in travel. You can use your doctorate in being a consultant. You can use your doctorate and mentor other people." So yeah, to answer your question, I didn't think, and I actually never thought of myself as being a university professor per se, although that's what I turned out to be partially. I thought of myself as being someone who knew enough about communication that I could teach other people about it and have them either learn how to use it in a way that served them, or at least avoid being dominated by the racist content of mass communication.
Okay. So, I know that you're very, very passionate about transformation and helping other people to transform their lives, including myself. but did this start at the university? I mean, did you institute this mindset to your students?
That was always in the background. I would say that there's what one teaches, and then there's the meta teaching, right? There's something underneath, and it always be underneath it was, how can you use what you're learning to empower social change, right? So taking what they've learned out of the context of, oh, I'm getting more knowledge, and I'm going to get another degree, to what does it mean for you as a human being, right? To exist on this planet with the knowledge that you have, how would you be able to use it? And fortunately, later in my career, I'd say the last 10 years of my career, I was introduced to a program in leadership. It was Werner Erhard, who is the founder of, Landmark Education and the S Training and a lot of other things. He instituted a program for professors who wanted to learn how to teach transformation, or transformational leadership in particular, to students in universities. And I was invited to participate in that program, and I did, and so then it even got this. I got more of that teaching, if you would, or philosophy into what I was teaching in the classroom, and also obviously in my when I traveled abroad, a lot of what I then applied to do had very little to do with journalism and communications, and a lot to do with teaching leadership in Vietnam, where I taught at the business school, or in Shanghai, where I taught also at a business school, because there was a practical application of leadership principles to solving real world problems in business, in teams and organizations. So yeah, that's my journey with transformation, is that it's I've been transformed by it, and I think that everyone should have. Well, I shouldn't have said should, but everyone deserves to have the opportunity to live their lives on their own terms, do whatever they want to do, not to be confined to what they learned from their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their uncle, their aunt, from the media, from school, from it goes on, but to actually examine, have a chance to examine themselves and take a look and say, what is it that I really want? And then secondly, what's keeping me from going after it? Discard that, get it out of the way, and then go out there and do it. So that's what I'm up to nowadays.
Well, you know what, Michael, you said everybody should go through a transformative experience, and I believe you're right, because what I found out from the landmark experience, and I thank you again for suggesting that I go through that program because it works. And so, what I found out, in order to be transformed, you need to have a reckoning of the past in some form or fashion, and that requires a transformation.
Yes. And I'm going to put it this way. I'm agreeing with you, and I'm thinking about something. So, uh, the reckoning with the past, that's the part. Yeah. So I think so much of our past, and that's kind of perfect the way we started our this interview today, is just hidden from us. I mean, literally, we've repressed it. We stopped remembering it. Maybe it was too painful. Most, something happens early in the life, and no, not that. I'm never going to be that. I'm never going to do that. That's never going to happen to me again. And I'm going to find another way of being that compensates for that thing that I wanted to do but was not allowed to, or to use the word, thwarted. It was, prevented from doing. I'm going to do I'm going to try to do what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it in some way that's not doesn't have to go through that ever again, right? So what I'm pointing to, Jason, is um, it's discovering something that you're totally unaware of, that's running your life. I mean, it's like it's actually in the driver's seat. You think you're running your life, but something happened to you. Like say for example, I had a father who wow. So my father was away on the ship about let's see, I guess 9 months out of the year. I mean, 3 months, then he come home for shore leave a month, and most of that month was him doing what he wanted to do because he'd been on a ship for 3 months, so he had to
Right.
decompress. So by the time I saw him, he was like, "Okay, I'm ready to leave." Right. So, but I'm going to get this. I'm going to share this with you because I think it's a lot of our experiences, or at least many of our experiences. So this guy, what he all he had to say to me when he came home was, "What have you accomplished?" And I would say to him, "I just got an award at I got all A's." I'll give you an example. I've been 7 years old, or 12 years old, or even 16 years old. And then he would say, his next breath would be, "Okay, so what are you going to do next?" And I was like, well, I mean, do I get some credit for any of this? And but so I never got the feel that what I had done in life was sufficient, and so I spent all of my life trying to do more, like a rat, like running, 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 run. I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. And even as I accomplished more, it was never satisfying, because I knew that no matter how, I didn't know this consciously, I knew that no matter how much I accomplished, that was never going to be enough, right? So the whole thing was so frustrating. And I didn't know that I was running my life out of I'm not enough and I'll never be enough. And that's the discovery. It's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I mean, wait, how many say now? How many languages do you speak? Okay, you speak four languages. How many countries have you lived? 20 countries. How many universities have you taught at? No, okay, I think you've done something. Maybe you didn't do. Maybe you're not Superman. But you did something. You accomplished something. And even to this day, Jason, even to this day, when I look at what I've done, I think, well, I didn't really do enough. I could have done more. But now I recognize that as a thought, not as a reality. It's a thought I have about Michael that, probably be there the rest of my life because it was embedded there by my dad, right? And our parents played this role. So yeah, thank you. Thank you again.
Yeah, I mean that's God, that I think all of us to some degree we go through a situation where we're in a current relationship. It could be with our wives, if it's a woman with your husband, and something from your childhood, probably from the relationship with your dad or your mom. Um, we spend the rest of our lives trying to measure up to something that we didn't get as a child, and we never, in our minds, we never measure up to it, and we take this out on the people that we're in current relationships with. So, which is, I mean, I don't think we do this consciously, right? And like you said, it's buried in our minds somewhere. So, going through a transformative experience like that at Landmark, or could be with another coaching practice or experience, right? We find out that if we don't get separated from whatever it was that we went through as a child, how is it that we can achieve our dreams in life? I mean, we'll never be satisfied. We'll always be in a rat race, like you described it. That's not living. It's not life.
Exactly. And that's why I've made a commitment, and I believe it's the same commitment that you've made, to have people have an opportunity to have a breakthrough in how they experience their life, how they conceive of themselves in life, like as like who they are, who they've made themselves up to be, have a breakthrough in that so that some new fresh light can get in there. And then also to have them have a chance to take a look at what is this thing called life. I mean, it's not necessarily all about like making some money and then buying a house and then I don't know, maybe buy some cars and take some trips around the world and then maybe I don't know, get sick and oh, you got to have some kids, yeah, make some kids and then get sick and then die, right? I mean, maybe that's not what life is about. Maybe life is about, well, so it could be about a number of things. It could be about making a difference with other people. It could be about service. It could be about growing closer in your spiritual relationship with God. You could have it be about maybe building. A lot of people don't have decent water to drink. It could be about having hospitals. It could be about school. I mean, you could make it about so much larger than just your little tiny clot of protoplasm that's here that you're serving with everything you've got to make sure that it doesn't die, right? It could be about much more than that. And so I think our work, as I see it now that I'm in my senior years, I think that our work is about three things: giving people, whether it be in the form of a retreat where they can take a look, do some meditation, maybe engage in some prayer, maybe some introspective listening, right? Just listening. Can you imagine just stopping from this carousel called life, this madness, stepping off for a few days and going on a retreat and actually taking a look at yourself and saying, hey, well, who am I? Who is this person in here that's doing all this wanting and grasping and and all fearful, always worried, anxious? This is going to turn out. What is it that's going to turn out or not going to turn out? I mean, really looking. So we there's the retreat that you and I are organizing. It's coming up in October. We'll probably do something sooner, for in terms of taking a look and getting outside of their comfort zone outside of the United States, at least. Maybe that's not a comfort zone for everyone, but it's an opportunity to escape from that for a while
Right.
and do some looking. Yeah, and then there's the other piece is a short course. I've developed a course that has people look at over a 10-day, 10 lessons, you might call them, or 10 experiences, and take a look at, well, what does it take to move towards your goals? What are some of the things you might have to do? And one of those things includes taking a look at what is it that your heart is calling you to do? Why are we following someone else's blueprint, someone else's idea of what life should be, when when we could be following our own? Maybe God has inspired us with our own idea of what we should do with our life. Could we take a look and see what that might be, and then maybe if you discover that, maybe develop the courage to actually pursue the dream in our heart. And then the third piece is, as you know, and you do this, I do this. I think everyone that I know that has had the transformative experience we've been speaking about is maybe you look at how you can help others, like support them in their transformation. Because let's face it, change is not something that most of us look forward to.
Right.
we say we want it, but when it comes to actually doing what it takes, well, maybe tomorrow. It's like I think about myself, the exercise part, because I know that if I'm going to stay vital, I need to exercise every day, right? I mean, it's not. So how many people know that and then they don't get up and do it? They just think about it,
Exactly.
right? So
Yeah.
you need someone that supports you, a coach, someone to stand behind you, someone to hold you accountable. So those are the three pillars of the work that I do: the course, the retreats, and the coaching that I think can be useful of service to people.
Okay. So, as a transformation coach, what is it that you do to help people to reach a breakthrough in their lives?
Well, the first thing going back, thank you. So the first thing I do is to have them take a look, uh, you know, based on what they say they want to accomplish. Have them take a look as well. Okay, are you actually doing that? Are you engaged in that? Are you what's stopping you from doing that? That area, kind of a, what are you really up to, like that? Not like what you're doing, but what is it that you say you're about, and then how are you doing that or not doing that? So people become very, I would call it, it's a look at what amount of integrity do they have between what they say they want and what they're actually doing. A combination of integrity and authenticity in that. So that's the first step. Then the second is, okay, look, I'm going to fly a plane. Okay, got it. You really want to fly? Okay, I got it. You're going to fly a plane? Okay, I got it. That's what I really want to do. I've always wanted to fly a plane. I don't know why I wound up being a teacher and I have to go to school every day and deal with these kids. Oh, okay, I got it. You want to fly a plane? And then it's like, and sometimes it's like what they're wanting to do. Excuse me, what they're wanting to do, they see it as something that's impossible for them. Okay, I wanted to fly a plane, but I don't know anything about flying planes. And, by the way, I got a job to do and I don't have any money. People have all these obstacles in their mind to what they want to do. And so I help them look to see, the second step is I help them look to see how they can overcome their obstacles. Obviously, I've learned to fly a plane. I did that while I was abroad. I went to I took classes, and I don't know, after 30 classes, I was able to go solo. So I know it's possible. I know I've jumped out of a plane. I parachuted out of a plane. Right. So
Okay.
I know these things, and I did that at 65, by the way. So
Did you?
so
Oh, wow.
yeah, I did that, and I I bungee jumped off a bridge in Zambia, right? So the key to these things is realizing that you actually can do them. Then once you realize that you can, you can overcome your obstacles. The next thing, step three, is to develop a plan. The plan. How do you do that? Well, okay, you find out about, okay, where do they offer flying lessons? Oh, okay. Do they have a payment plan? Okay. How many weeks does it take? Or some cases years, but you can actually go solo in 6 months if you wanted to, right? So there is a solution to every problem once we get out of the way that it can't be done. It's really pretty straightforward. Now, after you have a plan in place to get to where you want to go, the first thing's gonna come up. This is number four. What's gonna come up is, well, it's too hard, it's too difficult. I don't have the money. I'm tired. A lot of people have to watch TV every night, at 7 o'clock, so they don't have time to be.
Right.
I don't have time for this. So that you need someone to by your side to say to you when my mother used to call it when you're backsliding from your plan, to say to you, look, didn't you say you wanted to take flying lessons? Okay, and didn't you have a flying lesson scheduled for today? Okay, and why are you drinking beer instead of going, like that? So keep you on track. That's the role of the coaching. That's the fourth aspect of it. So I'll do that again. First, you look, right, to see what it is you want. Get clarity about what you want. Number one. Two, you look at the obstacles that are there and say, get them out of the way. No, this is something I made up. I can't do it. Yeah, I can. You can do it. The third is, oh, by the way, on that second piece, I found it very helpful. I read a book called How to Get What You Really Want. And it's all about this application of spiritual principles to help us get through those moments in life where we think we can't. We're sons of God, created us in His own image. God wants the best for us. Who would, what father, if his son asked him for bread, would give him a stone? So, okay, I'm asking God, you're going to help me out and help me do this, right? So you get this, you get clear that you can do the thing. There's nothing that really can stop you. Then you make out a plan. That's the step three. And then the fourth is you get some coaching from someone to keep you on the path until you get to your goal. So that's what I do.
I think that's wonderful, man. And spirituality, as you brought that up, that's got to be a big part of it because I mean, once you get of age, you let's say you retire at 65. A lot of people have the idea that, well, I could chill out in Florida, go to the beach every day and relax, and pretty much that's it. But having a sense of purpose is the thing I think too that helps you to go through that transformative experience and look for something bigger and better.
Yes, yeah, and you've rightly spoken, Jason, because if you don't have something that's actually uh, driving you, you might say, or that's I would call it pulling. Something's pulling you forward, right? And it's. I want to say this because I think it's true, and I would say it anyway. I don't know, I'm not the arbiter on what's true or not, but it seems that uh, there is something to having a mission, if you would. You use the word of purpose, something that you're inspired to do. I can't remember ever not wanting to have people have the opportunity to improve themselves. Right, I'm inspired by that, whether they're Americans or Chinese or Japanese or Zambians or I don't know. So it's like, why everybody should have an opportunity to realize their dream. So yeah, I'm inspired to do that, and some people are inspired. The people who you remember, there's this famous story about two workers, and they're working on a cathedral, right? And one of the workers, the guy, someone comes up to interview them, and he's put, they're both hewing bricks for the cathedral, to put it that way. And so that someone walks up to one of the workers and says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm chopping these blocks for to build this wall." And okay, got it. That's what you're doing. And he asked the other worker, he said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm building a cathedral to the glory of God." So I think the guy who's doing the work for the glory of God is probably a lot more inspired and fired up about what he's doing. Gets up in the morning,
Exactly.
he's ready to go. I'm going to build for God. I mean, like that. So again, I agree with you that the spiritual piece of this is very, very important, and maybe more important than many of us realize.
Yeah. So along those lines too, Michael, do you see that most people they just have the wrong perspective of what life should be in general.
Well, I won't. I'm going to take exception to that, um, because I don't know what. First off, I have a very big problem with right and wrong, as you know from our previous conversation. So I think people maybe are not in touch with what they like. They're not aware of. They're not as conscious of. They're not present to. That's my word. They're not present to what life could be about. Right. Because you usually run into, I know I've run into problems, let me put it that way, when it's been about me. That's where it always goes wrong. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I want sex. I want more money. I want. That's where things go wrong because first off, well, other people might think it's about them. So why would they want to be catering to you, right? Like that. But beyond that, there's this other thing that, uh, and I'm going to return this right and wrong thing. It's like I think of it as error, more like error. You're trying to get to here's a good example. Maybe you're pretty clear about it. You want to get to Washington D.C., right? And you're in to give you a graphic example, yeah, you're in Houston, Texas, right? You're trying to get to Washington D.C. Now, if you go to west from Texas, you're never going to get to Washington D.C. You're going to wind up
Right.
in California, maybe, or Nevada or someplace. But you're not going to wind up. I mean, unless you cross the ocean and go around. I mean, it'll be a very long trip before you get to Washington, right? So people make the mistake, and they think that the direction in which they're going is going to get them to where they want to go, and it won't, right? So I know that, but I look at them like, well, okay, you made a mistake. You need to be reoriented. Here I am. I can help you, maybe point you in the right direction. So you start going towards, Alabama and Mississippi or, Florida or someplace. You go start going at least in the general direction of where Washington might be. But there's no, I don't, I think what I'm also trying to say, Jason, is there's no condemnation of those folks in there for me. It's like, well, they're just they made a mistake. They don't know, they haven't seen, and and there's a larger story. Just one, if you could bear with me for a minute.
Sure.
I think there's a larger possibility is that people are going in. They don't know. Let me see if I can say this more clearly. They are not clear about where they want to go. They might actually really, really be wanting to get to California, and they think they're trying to get to Philadelphia or New York or the other direction. And so that they're confused about what they actually want to have and to be out of life. Is that Does that help in clarifying that point? So that's why I
Yes.
don't. That's why I don't say that they. Maybe I got off on maybe I'm saying exactly what you wanted to say
Yeah.
about perspective.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. That's it. I mean, it's perspective. They view life one way, and they want this. That's maybe, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years in the future, but the way that they think about achieving that thing is just not the right perspective. It's not the right view that they should have in order to
yeah.
achieve the thing that they want.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think the word I'm looking for. It's not. It won't work. What they're doing won't work. It's like trying to have a successful marriage and then having lying to your spouse about whatever you're doing. Lying to someone will never really have your relationship work, right? If it
No.
involves lying and deceit, then it will never work. So yeah, it's I like that it's unworkable rather than it's wrong. Is what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm trying to put in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of brings to mind when I used to put puzzles together with my grandma when I was a kid,
Mm,
and
mm.
I would try to, force two pieces together, and she would tell me, no, no, don't force it, you know. Uh, so that's exactly what you're saying. If you have your point of view on something, and your wife has another point of view, don't try to force her to agree with what you want or change her point of view to fit what you want. It may not be the right thing. So yeah,
Precisely, precisely. Do I would like to? I don't know when people join our conversation, Jason. So I'd like you to play again the introduction so that
yeah,
people
sure.
know who we are.
We'll be right back.
Dr. Michael Leslie, Ph.D., is an experienced speaker, facilitator, coach, and trainer, and served 35 years as a tenured professor of journalism and communications at the University of Florida. He has traveled extensively, teaching and researching intercultural communication, leadership, and personal transformation in 20 countries on 4 continents. He speaks fluent English, Spanish, French, and is proficient in Portuguese. He is a graduate of multiple landmark worldwide personal development and training programs, including the Curriculum for Living, the Team Management and Leadership Program, the Communication Course, the Leadership Course, and numerous specialized landmark seminars on money, living life by design, and happiness, among others. The results of his intellectual and professional endeavors have been published in academic and trade journals, and he has been a featured guest on numerous international radio and television programs. He lives currently in Cali, Colombia, where he hosts a podcast called The Alchemy of Success, based on his book, How to Get What You Really Want, available on Amazon. He is currently designing a 7-day in person life transformation experience for next level self actualizers, debuting October 2025 in Santa Marta. To find out more about his services, subscribe to his Alchemy of Success podcast at www.youtube.com, arroba, or at Get What You Really Want, or contact him via his website at www.drmichaelleslie.com.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful work that you're doing, Michael. So you recently moved to Santa Elena, Colombia, and you started a new project where you're going to be hosting retreats on your own. Tell us about that.
Well, there's I want to give you it's always good to give people the backstory, so to speak. So, when I was a graduate student, let's see, how far does this go back? This is one of those, dreams, right? That go back from the beginning of creation, something like that. But no, seriously speaking, I when I was an undergraduate student at the University of California at the time it was San Diego, UCSD, right? And this is back in what, the 70s. And so I had an opportunity to go to Big Sur, which is a nice mountain. It's on the cliffs overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and it's a retreat center, right? And so and they have jacuzzis and massages and hot tubs and lectures by on breathing and massage and how to become your best you and all of, and psychologists looking at how come you think the way you do. That was before I discovered Landmark. Okay. So and it was, I said, wow, this is really good. People can come here with and be healed. I mean, maybe they're in a relationship, they don't like it anymore, they're trying to get out of it, or maybe they're trying to get into one, or maybe their business isn't working and they're trying to figure out why it's not working, or maybe they don't feel so great about themselves, and so now they want to find out what's at the root of them not having high self-esteem. And you come to this place, and sometimes people would spend a week. Sometimes they would spend several weeks. Sometimes they would spend a weekend, and they would come away refreshed and ready to be, a new version of themselves. So that dream that I got, that I saw that, and I said, that's really work worth doing. I think that even actually expired my academic career too, because part of that was transformation, like transforming people's lives. So I've been looking for a long time for a place to have this retreat, to have my own retreat center, or to organize retreats, have my own retreat center, have other people who do transformational work like yourself to come and speak and help be like that. And Santa Elena, a friend of mine who has a farm and a farmhouse, pretty large tract of land, and that is suitable for doing retreats. In fact, we had a couple spend a weekend here just this last weekend. And so the idea now is to have transformational retreats here in Santa Elena, Santa Marta later in the year, different locations, Colombia, perhaps in other parts of South America, but outside the United States is what my ambition, and have people come and discover how to live their best lives. So that's what we're planning. Our retreat center here, we're refurbishing the premises, getting learning the business of, if you would, of doing a retreat, how to make it sustainable, so it's not a one-shot thing, and also meeting people who are capable of being partners with us, or I could say with me, but with us in this enterprise of human transformation. So that's what I'm doing in Santa Elena. I expect to be able to have this available also to Colombians, right? Who are, because we're all human beings having a human experience, wanting to have our lives be great. So that the dream is to have it be an international center. People come from abroad. They come from all walks of life. They come from different, racial, cultural, economic, all kinds of backgrounds, and they get a chance. They have an opportunity to take a look and to see what it is they really want and how they can have it.
I think that's amazing. I mean, you're living your dream. That's I mean, you are a transformation coach.
Well, I accept that. I accept that. I was asked by a mutual friend of ours, Jason, the other day. He says to me, "Well, how should practically?" He was saying, "Well, how do you want to be addressed?" So I could say, "Well, His Royal Highness," or I was thinking, I liked for a long time. I liked the word. Not for me, but I like the way it's applied to other people. Guru, that's a nice one. They called me that when I was teaching in India. They would say me Guru Leslie.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was very interesting. But what I think would work now is, which is what I'm doing, as you put it. I like to think of myself as an alchemist. An alchemist is someone who brings materials together that are maybe not, and help and refines them, or help someone refine themselves so they can be what they want to be, right? So I call myself an alchemist nowadays. That's how I think of myself.
Awesome. So tell us, who are your ideal clients? I mean, are these nine to fivers? Are these people that have retired? Who are you looking
Yeah,
to help?
yeah. Well, I think where we're going with this is, and I've been thinking about this as I've been developing it. So there's one of the groups that I think would benefit most are people who are already, I would say, they've had some experience living. So they might be 50, 40, somewhere in there, and up, right? Maybe, they still have the ambition, right? Of, okay, I still want to have a great life. They haven't given up, but they have enough security, financial security now, where they can actually take a look, right, and say, okay, what else is out there that I haven't really taken a look at yet that might really be a contribution to me. So I think that's the folk. They're 50ish, 40ish, 50ish, something like that, who wanting to take a look. Males and females. They could be younger people, somewhat younger, but I think it's people who have. They're not. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll put this in a more positive vein. They're people who are ready to grow, they're not wanting to repeat the same patterns. They definitely don't want to continue to live their life as they've lived it. They want more, right? They want something greater. And so I think that would be my ideal person, a person who's growth oriented, uh, relatively financially secure, that can and that's willing, committed to have a great life. So those are my folks.
Awesome. I mean, this has been a wonderful conversation, Dr. Leslie. I mean, I got to go back and watch this tape, but absolutely, I learned a lot from this, and I'm sure everybody watching learned a lot too. How can people find you, Dr. Leslie?
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with me is through my website. It's drmichaelleslie.com. On the website, there's a place where you can schedule a time to meet with me with a discovery call. We can chat, see what you're wanting to do, what you're trying to achieve, if I can play a role in helping you to achieve that. So that's the purpose of that. And then I would ask people, and you would know better, but I would ask people to subscribe to this Alchemy of Success podcast. I am pretty sure that people can reach me here. And then the last place where people can get in touch with me, which is probably very convenient, is on LinkedIn, right? I have an account there, and in fact, the Alchemy of Success is my all of the information about me and who I am and where I've been and all that is available on LinkedIn. So any of those ways, LinkedIn, through my website, drmichaelleslie.com, or if you want to, you can subscribe to the podcast, and maybe you can reach me there. Or is there another way they can reach me, Jason? You're the man. So have I
I
left out
mean,
anything?
well, this is going to be here on LinkedIn. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Amazon Music, and also Apple Podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, you can find this everywhere.
Great, good.
Yes.
Well, again,
So,
thank you.
Mike, you're welcome. You're welcome. Dr. Leslie, do you have any last words for our audience? Words of wisdom.
Oh, now I've become a wise man. Huh? Yeah, yes, I do have one thing I seem to have learned, or I'm gonna. There'll be two. I'm gonna squeeze this in if I can. So, um, the only way that I know from my experience that works to get what you want in life is you have to start off by being authentic about your inauthenticity. What I mean by that, stop pretending that everything is great in your life. It's not. I mean, holding up this picture that everything, my relationship is great and I'm fine and everything's working and all of that. And it's just that life is about continuous expansion. So when you recognize the things that are not working, it gives you an opportunity to work on them. That's the very first step, being authentic about the inauthenticities in your life, or the incompletions, or the shortcomings, or the things that you would like to have better. That's like fundamental. You can't get anywhere unless you do that. And that takes a certain amount of humility and vulnerability and willingness to change, right? And then you can look to see how that change process can be carried out. That's the most important thing. And the second thing I would say is, uh, when you're on this path of, or made the decision to transform yourself, or to improve yourself, or to look to see what's next, it doesn't have to be a solo journey. There are people, Jason and I might use the terms from time to time. There are people, there are angels waiting in the wings to help you, right? Sometimes they take human forms. you know so you don't have to do this alone. It's, there's a lot of love. There's a lot of love all around, just waiting for you to let it in, and to ask for assistance, and to and to accept it, right? Maybe it won't come in the form that you think it should come in or you'd like it to come in, but it's available. Help is available. And I know that Jason is one of the people that I know who's available to help, right? So those are my parting words.
Wonderful. Awesome conversation, Dr. Leslie. Thank you so much for who you are and what you do, for following your purpose and continuing, right? Your life is not over. You're doing amazing things still, and helping people in the process. And I'm proud and happy to call you a friend and my mentor. Thank you so much.
Thank you and good night. Good night to all of you.
Good night. Thank you for watching the Alchemy of Success podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.